The red ships of the Vorthak Empire moved through space like sharks in dark water. For 3,000 years they had ruled the galaxy with iron fists and plasma cannons. Every world knew the crimson hulls that brought demands for tribute, slaves, and complete surrender. Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewport. His scaled skin caught the red light from the ship's systems. Like all Vorthak, he was tall and thin, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed yellow in the dark. He had conquered 17 worlds in his lifetime. Today, he expected to receive reports of the 18th. "Admiral," called his communications officer, "the patrol fleets from Sector 7 are overdue." Krell's eyes narrowed. "How overdue?" 48 hours, sir. All 7 fleets. They were investigating disturbances near a small world called Earth. The name meant nothing to Krell. Earth was just another blue planet, with primitive creatures that walked on 2 legs. The Vorthak had enslaved thousands of their kind from a colony world 2 years ago. The humans had fought back, but every species fought back at first. They all learned to submit eventually. "Send the 12th Battle Group to investigate," Krell ordered. "If these humans think they can hide from the Empire, they will learn otherwise." But the 12th Battle Group never reported back either. Far from the Empire's capital, Captain Hyunwoo Kim walked through the corridors of the largest warship humanity had ever built. The TDS Indomitable stretched 12 kilometers from front to back. Its hull was black as space itself, covered in armor that could stop anything the galaxy might throw at it. Kim was 45 years old, with gray starting to show in his black hair. He had spent 20 years in Earth's military, fighting wars that most of the galaxy could not imagine. Humans were different from other species. While the rest of the galaxy had found peace long ago, humans still remembered how to fight. The bridge of the Indomitable was alive with activity. 50,000 crew members worked throughout the massive ship, each one trained for war. They came from every nation on Earth, but they shared one thing in common. They all remembered what the Vorthak had done to New Sol. "Captain," said Bo-Ra Lee, his tactical officer. She was young, only 28, but her mind worked like a computer when it came to space battles. "We're approaching the jump point. All systems are ready." Kim nodded and looked at the main screen. It showed their destination. Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Vorthak Empire. No human ship had ever traveled so deep into enemy space. No human had ever dared to challenge the Empire on its home ground. "Taemin, report on the armor systems," Kim said. Chief Engineer Taemin Park looked up from his console. He was older than Kim, with hands that showed years of working with machines. "All quantum phase generators are operating at full power, Captain. Our shields can handle anything they throw at us." The Indomitable was more than just a warship. It was humanity's answer to 3,000 years of galactic tyranny. While other species had grown soft during the long peace, humans had spent those same years perfecting the art of war. Every system on the ship was designed by people who understood that sometimes violence was the only language bullies understood. In the ship's intelligence center, Min Ho Choi stared at photographs of his daughter. She was 12 years old when the Vorthak took her from New Sol. For 2 years he had worked day and night to help build this ship, to plan this mission. The Empire had made a mistake when they took human children. They did not understand what parents would do to get their children back. "All hands, prepare for hyperspace jump," announced the ship's communications officer, Jae-hyun Park. His voice echoed through every deck of the massive vessel. The Indomitable's engines began to hum with power. Unlike the simple drive systems used by other species, the human ship used technology that bent space itself. Earth scientists had studied every piece of alien technology they could find, then built something better. On Nexus Prime, Empress Yeonseo Vak sat on her golden throne in the heart of the Imperial Palace. She was beautiful in the way all Vorthak royalty were beautiful, with perfect features and skin that shone like polished metal. But her beauty hid a mind that was cold and cruel. The Empire controlled over 800 worlds. Billions of creatures lived and died at her word. She had never known defeat, never known fear. The concept that someone might challenge her power was as foreign to her as the idea of flying without wings. "Your Majesty," said one of her advisors, approaching the throne with careful steps. "We have lost contact with several patrol fleets near the outer rim." The Empress barely looked up from the report she was reading. "Pirates, most likely. Send a battle group to clean them up." "We did, Your Majesty. They have not reported back either." This made the Empress look up. Her yellow eyes focused on the advisor with the intensity of a laser. "What are you telling me?" "Something is happening near the human world, Your Majesty. Something we do not understand." The Empress laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. "Humans? Those primitive creatures that barely know how to build starships? What could they possibly do to the Imperial fleet?" The advisor bowed lower. "Perhaps nothing, Your Majesty. But Admiral Krell requests permission to investigate personally." "Granted," the Empress said, already losing interest. "Tell the Admiral to make an example of these humans. I want their world to burn as a lesson to anyone else who thinks they can defy the Empire." In space, reality tore open like fabric. The Indomitable emerged from hyperspace above Nexus Prime, its black hull reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. The ship was larger than anything in the Imperial fleet, larger than some of the space stations that orbited the capital world. On the bridge, Captain Kim looked at the planet below. Billions of Vorthak lived on that world, secure in their belief that they were the masters of the galaxy. They were about to learn that the galaxy had changed. "Open a channel to the planet," Kim ordered. "All frequencies." Jae-hyun's fingers moved over his console. "Channel open, sir." Kim's voice carried across space to the world below, translated into perfect Vorthak by the ship's computers. "This is Captain Hyunwoo Kim of the Terran defense ship Indomitable. We have come for our people. Return them and no harm will come to your world. Refuse and learn why the Empire should have left humanity alone." The message echoed through the halls of the Imperial Palace, reached every communication device on the planet. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone had threatened the Vorthak Empire in its own home. The war that would reshape the galaxy was about to begin. The massive Terran ship hung in space above Nexus Prime like a black sword pointed at the heart of the Empire. On the planet below, alarms began to sound in every city, every military base, every government building. The Vorthak had never seen anything like the Indomitable. Empress Yeon Seovak stood in her command center, staring at the displays that showed the human ship. The vessel was impossibly large, its hull covered in weapons that her sensors could not identify. Her military advisors rushed around her, shouting orders and trying to understand what they were facing. "How did it get past our defenses?" the Empress demanded. General Morketh, her chief military officer, studied the readings with growing confusion. "Your Majesty, our sensors show that the ship simply appeared. No hyperspace distortions, no energy signatures. It was not there, and then it was." The Empress's eyes blazed with anger. "Impossible. Nothing can hide from our detection systems. The ship is unlike anything in our databases," another advisor reported. "It appears to be 12 kilometers long with armor plating we cannot penetrate with our scans. The energy readings suggest a power core larger than our entire orbital defense grid." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Kim watched the planet's defense systems come online. Massive orbital platforms swung their weapons toward his ship. Each platform carried enough firepower to destroy a city. There were 24 of them arranged around the planet like a deadly necklace. "They're powering weapons," reported Bo-Ra Lee from her tactical station. "All platforms are targeting us," Kim nodded calmly. "Expected. Communications, any response to our message?" Jae-hyun Park shook his head. "Nothing but weapons lock warnings, Captain." "Then they have chosen their answer," Kim said. "All hands prepare for combat. Hunji, power up the point defense systems." Weapons specialist Yoonji-nam's fingers danced over her controls. She was small and quiet, but when it came to destroying things, she was an artist. "All systems online, Captain." "Shall I return fire?" "Not yet," Kim replied. "Let them show us what they have first." The Empress had made her decision. These humans had dared to threaten her world, her empire. They would learn the price of such arrogance. "All platforms open fire. Destroy that ship." 24 orbital defense platforms unleashed their fury at once. Plasma bolts the size of buildings streaked across space toward the Indomitable. Each bolt carried enough energy to melt through a mountain. The combined firepower could have destroyed an entire fleet of conventional ships. The plasma struck the human ship and simply disappeared. The bolts hit the Indomitable's shields and scattered like raindrops hitting a window. The massive vessel did not even shake from the impact. Its black hull remained unmarked, untouched, as if the Empire's most powerful weapons were nothing more than flashlights. "Impossible," whispered General Morketh. "Our plasma cannons can crack planets." The Empress stared at the displays in shock. "Fire again. All weapons, maximum power. The platforms fired again and again. The space around the Indomitable lit up like a star as hundreds of plasma bolts struck the ship. For 5 minutes, the Empire threw everything it had at the human vessel. The energy released was enough to boil oceans, to melt continents. The Indomitable sat in the storm of fire like a rock in a river. Not a single mark appeared on its hull. Captain Kim watched the light show with calm eyes. Impressive display. Are they finished? Weapons fire is decreasing, Bo-Ra reported. I think they're running low on power. Good, now it's our turn. Hyunji, target the lead platform. Single shot, minimum power. Hyunji's hands moved over her controls. Target locked, Captain. Antimatter beam ready. Fire. A thin line of pure energy lanced out from the Indomitable's main weapon. The beam was barely visible, no thicker than a pencil. It touched the orbital platform for less than a second. The platform simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a massive structure bristling with weapons and armor. The next moment there was only empty space and a cloud of expanding atoms. The antimatter beam had not just destroyed the platform, it had unmade it at the molecular level. The command center on Nexus Prime fell silent. Every screen showed the same thing. Empty space where their most powerful defensive structure had been. The platform had contained 5,000 Vorthak soldiers. Now there was nothing left to even bury. Target the next platform, Kim ordered quietly. The second beam took longer, perhaps 2 seconds of contact. The result was the same. Another platform vanished from existence, taking another 5,000 lives with it. Stop! The Empress's voice cracked across the communication channels. We surrender. We yield! Kim raised his hand and Yunji's finger paused over the firing control. Open a channel, Jae-hyun nodded. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Kim. You fired first, Empress. We responded with the minimum force necessary to demonstrate our capabilities. We destroyed 2 of your platforms. We could have destroyed all 24 in the same time. We could have destroyed your planet. The Empress's voice shook as she replied. What do you want? I told you already. Our people, the humans you took from New Seoul, return them unharmed and we will leave your world in peace. And if we refuse? Kim's voice was cold as space itself. Then you will learn why the rest of the galaxy fears us. You think the Empire is strong because you can conquer peaceful worlds. You have never faced a species that was born in war, raised in conflict, shaped by 10,000 years of fighting for survival. In the command center, General Morketh leaned close to the Empress. Your Majesty, we should negotiate. This ship, it has technology we have never seen. Weapons that make our best efforts look like toys. The Empress's pride warred with her fear. The Empire had never surrendered to anyone, but she had also never faced anything like this black ship that hung above her world like the sword of a god. How many humans did we take from their colony? She asked. Approximately 50,000, Your Majesty. They are in the labor camps on the far continent. The Empress closed her eyes. 50,000 slaves in exchange for avoiding a war with an enemy that could make her platforms disappear with pencil-thin beams of light. We need time to gather them, she said finally. You have 6 hours, Kim replied. After that, we will assume you have refused our offer. And then what? Kim looked at the planet below, at the lights of the cities where billions of Vorthak live their lives. Then you will discover what happens when someone threatens humanity's children. 6 hours, Empress. Choose wisely. The communication ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. The Empress stared at the screen showing the human ship. For 3,000 years, the Empire had been the hunters. Now for the first time, they were the prey. Send word to Admiral Krell, she ordered. Tell him to return to Nexus Prime immediately. Bring the entire fleet. Your Majesty, General Morketh said carefully. If that one ship can do this much damage, what will happen when their fleet arrives? The Empress turned to look at him, her yellow eyes wide with a fear she had never known before. That is exactly what I'm afraid to find out. Above them, the Indomitable waited in the darkness of space, patient as death itself. Captain Kim had given them 6 hours to return the stolen humans. He hoped they would be wise enough to take the offer. If not, the Empire was about to learn why humanity was the galaxy's worst nightmare. Admiral Krell's flagship burst out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system, followed by the largest fleet the Vorthak Empire had ever assembled. 800 warships spread across space like a red cloud of death. Each ship carried thousands of warriors and enough weapons to level continents. Krell stood on his bridge, studying the sensor readings of the human vessel that hung above his homeworld. The ship was massive, larger than anything he had ever seen, but it was still just one ship against his entire fleet. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the Empress is requesting immediate communication." Krell's forearms moved across his command console. "Put her through." The Empress's image appeared on the main screen. Even through the hologram, Krell could see the fear in her yellow eyes. This surprised him. He had never seen the Empress afraid of anything. "Admiral, you must attack that human ship immediately," she said. "It has already destroyed 2 of our orbital platforms." Krell's eyes narrowed. The orbital platforms were some of the most heavily defended structures in the Empire. 2 platforms? How? "It simply erased them. Weapons we have never seen before. But surely your fleet can overwhelm a single ship no matter how large." Krell studied the readings again. The human ship showed no signs of launching fighters or calling for reinforcements. It sat alone in space, waiting. This seemed too easy. "Begin the attack," Krell ordered. "All ships advance and engage. Target their engines first. I want that ship captured if possible." The Red Fleet moved toward Nexus Prime like a tide of war. Fighter squadrons launched from the larger ships, creating clouds of small, fast vessels that could strike and retreat. Bomber wings followed, their hulls packed with explosives designed to crack open enemy hulls. On the Indomitable, Captain Kim watched the approaching fleet with calm interest. "Bora analysis?" Tactical Officer Bora Lee studied her displays. 800 ships, Captain. Mix of battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. Standard Vorthak formation. They're launching fighters and bombers. Numbers? Approximately 12,000 small craft, sir. Kim nodded. "Subin, activate the point defense grid. Jinwoo, bring the close-in weapon systems online." Tactical Specialist Subin Yoon's fingers moved over her controls. "Grid activated, Captain. All systems showing green." Weapons Engineer Jinwoo An smiled as his systems came to life. "Point defense ready, sir. We have over 1,000 interceptor guns online." The first wave of Vorthak fighters reached the Indomitable at attack speed. Their plan was simple: overwhelm the human ship's defenses with sheer numbers, then let the bombers finish the job. It was a tactic that had worked for 3,000 years. The fighters opened fire at maximum range, filling space with energy bolts and missiles. The pilots expected to see the human ship's shields flicker and fail under the massive assault. Instead, they watched their weapons simply disappear. The Indomitable's point defense system was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of small weapons tracked incoming fire with computer precision. Laser beams, particle guns, and kinetic interceptors created a wall of death around the human ship. Every missile, every energy bolt, every piece of incoming fire was destroyed before it could reach the hull. "Impossible," breathed one fighter pilot. "Nothing can stop that much firepower." The pilot was right. Nothing in the galaxy could stop that much firepower. But humanity was not from this galaxy. They came from a small blue world where species had spent millions of years trying to kill each other, where evolution had created creatures that fought wars with sticks and stones, then learned to split atoms and harness the power of stars. The fighter squadrons tried to break through the defensive fire. They attacked from every angle, using every tactic in their training manuals. The Indomitable's guns tracked them with mechanical precision, destroying ship after ship until space was filled with wreckage and expanding clouds of gas. Admiral Krell watched his fighters die and felt something he had not experienced in centuries: doubt. "Send in the bombers." All of them. The bomber wings dove toward the human ship, their hulls loaded with enough explosives to crack open moons. These were the Empire's elite pilots, veterans of 100 campaigns. They flew through the defensive fire like sharks through bloody water, accepting heavy losses to reach their target. The first bomber to penetrate the defensive grid released its payload directly against the Indomitable's hull. The explosion was visible from the planet below, bright enough to briefly outshine the twin suns. Enough energy was released to vaporize a city block. The smoke cleared to reveal the human ship completely undamaged. "What kind of armor is that?" Admiral Krell demanded. His science officer studied the readings with growing panic. "Sir, I don't think it's just armor. The hull appears to be made of materials we don't recognize. Our weapons can't even scratch it." More bombers reached the ship, emptying their entire payload against the black hull. Nuclear warheads, antimatter charges, plasma bombs. Everything the Empire had learned about destruction in 3 millennia of conquest. The Indomitable absorbed it all without showing a single mark. Captain Kim turned to his engineering officer. Taemin hull status? Chief Engineer Taemin Park checked his readings and smiled. Not even a scratch, Captain. The quantum phase armor is absorbing all kinetic and energy impacts. We could sit here for a week and they couldn't hurt us. Excellent. Kunji, are the main guns ready? Weapons Specialist Yunji Nam nodded eagerly. All batteries charged and ready, Captain. Shall I target their flagship? Not yet. Target the bomber squadrons first. Show them what real point defense looks like. The Indomitable's secondary weapons came online. Unlike the small point defense guns, these were ship killers designed to engage multiple targets simultaneously. Beams of coherent energy lanced out from dozens of weapon ports, each one capable of cutting through a battleship's armor like paper. The remaining bomber squadrons simply vanished. One moment they were attacking the human ship, the next they were clouds of ionized gas drifting through space. The defensive fire was so precise, so overwhelming, that the bombers had no time to even scream before they died. Admiral Krell's fleet had lost 4,000 ships in less than 10 minutes. The human vessel had not even moved from its position above the planet. All ships pull back, Krell ordered. Reform at maximum weapons range. Admiral, his communications officer said, we're receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through. Captain Kim's image appeared on the screen. He looked calm, almost bored. Admiral Krell, I presume. Your attack has failed. Your fighters and bombers are destroyed. Would you like to try something else, or shall we discuss the return of our people? Krell's 4 hands clenched into fists. You think one ship can stand against the entire Imperial fleet? Your fleet just tried to destroy one ship, Kim replied. How did that work out for you? The Admiral's pride warred with the evidence of his sensors. He had thrown everything he had at the human vessel and accomplished nothing. But the Empire had other weapons, weapons that had never failed. Bring up the planet killers, Krell ordered. His weapons officer looked shocked. Sir, those weapons are designed to destroy entire worlds. If we use them here, the humans will learn that the Empire does not negotiate with anyone, Krell finished. Target their ship with everything we have. I want that vessel reduced to atoms. The largest ships in Krell's fleet began to glow with internal energy. Planet killer weapons were the Empire's final argument. Devices so powerful they could crack tectonic plates and boil away atmospheres. They had been used only 3 times in Imperial history, always against worlds that refused to surrender. The weapons fired as one, creating a beam of energy that could be seen from neighboring star systems. The combined power was enough to shatter planets, to turn moons into asteroid fields. It struck the Indomitable head-on and held for 30 seconds of pure destruction. When the light faded, the human ship was still there. Still whole, still waiting. Admiral Krell stared at his sensors in disbelief. That's impossible. Nothing can survive a planet-killer bombardment. On the Indomitable's bridge, engineering specialist Ha-Yun Lim checked her readings and laughed. Captain, they just hit us with enough energy to destroy a planet. Our shields didn't even fluctuate, Kim nodded. Time to show them what real weapons look like. Kunji, target their flagship. Full power. The Indomitable's main gun began to charge. Unlike the Empire's energy weapons, this was something new. Something that had never been seen in the galaxy before. A weapon designed by a species that had spent its entire history learning new and better ways to kill. Admiral, Krell watched the human ship's main weapon track toward his flagship and felt fear for the first time in his long life. All ships evasive maneuvers. Full retreat, but it was too late. The Indomitable fired, and the war for the galaxy's future began in earnest. The beam from the Indomitable's main weapon reached across space at the speed of light. Admiral Krell's flagship, the pride of the Vorthak fleet, simply disappeared. The massive warship that had conquered 17 worlds was gone as if it had never existed. Where 8,000 Vorthak warriors had lived and fought, there was now only empty space. The remaining ships of the Imperial fleet drifted in shocked silence. Their most powerful admiral was dead. Their most advanced weapons had failed. The human ship sat in space like a monument to their defeat, untouched by everything they had thrown at it. On Nexus Prime, in the labor camps on the far continent, the captured humans heard the distant thunder of battle in the sky above. Dong-yun. Song pressed his face against the small window of his cell and saw flashes of light in the darkness. Song had been a major in Earth's military before the Vorthak took him from New Sol. For 2 years, he had endured slavery, planning and preparing for a moment like this. He recognized the sound of human weapons, the sharp crack of antimatter beams cutting through space. They came for us, he whispered to the other prisoners. Earth came for us. The captured humans began to stir in their cells. 50,000 people who had been taken from their homes, their families, their lives. They had been forced to work in the Empire's factories and mines, building the weapons that had just failed to destroy their rescuers. Song had spent 2 years learning the layout of the camps, studying the guards' routines, mapping every exit and corridor. He had shared this knowledge with the other prisoners, creating a network of resistance that the Vorthak had never suspected. Listen to me, Song called out in the darkness. The uprising begins now. Remember everything we planned. Remember what they taught us. The humans moved with purpose through the camps. 2 years of forced labor had taught them how Vorthak technology worked. They knew where the power generators were located, which controls operated the cell locks, how to disable the security systems. Young-hee Kang had been a computer specialist before her capture. Now she crawled through maintenance tunnels toward the camp's main computer. Her small fingers worked quickly on the alien interfaces, using codes she had memorized during months of careful observation. The cell doors opened all at once. 50,000 humans poured out of their prisons like a flood of vengeance. They had been beaten, starved, and worked nearly to death. But they had not been broken. Above them in space, Captain Kim watched the battle with tactical precision. The Imperial fleet was in chaos, their formation broken by the destruction of their flagship. Ships drifted without orders, their crews struggling to understand what had happened. Young-hee, Kim said to his intelligence officer, "What's the status of our people on the planet?" Intelligence officer Young-hee Kang studied her displays. Sensors are picking up massive energy surges from the labor camps, Captain. It looks like our people are making their move. Kim smiled grimly. The plan had always been more than just a rescue mission. If the Empire wanted to play psychological warfare, they would learn that humans had perfected that art long before they reached the stars. Woojin, begin the broadcast. Communications specialist Woojin. O activated the ship's most powerful transmitters. The signal would reach every world in the Empire, every ship in their fleet, every communication device in Vorthak space. This is Captain Hyun-woo Kim of the Terran defense ship Indomitable. Kim's voice echoed across the galaxy. For 3,000 years your empire has ruled through fear and oppression. You have enslaved countless species, destroyed entire civilizations, committed atrocities that have no name. The broadcast continued, but it was not just words. The Indomitable's computers uploaded terabytes of data to every receiver in the Empire. Video recordings from the labor camps, testimony from survivors, evidence of war crimes that stretched back centuries. For the first time in their history, the citizens of the Empire saw what their government had done in their name. They watched footage of children being torn from their families, of entire populations being enslaved, of worlds being burned for the crime of resistance. On a dozen worlds throughout the Empire, civil unrest began immediately. Species that had been enslaved for generations rose up as one, inspired by the sight of humans refusing to accept their fate. The carefully maintained order of the Empire began to crack. Admiral Krell was dead, but the Imperial fleet still had officers. Vice Admiral Thek took command of the remaining ships and tried to rally his forces. All ships form defensive positions around the planet. We cannot let these humans escape. But the fleet was too shaken to follow orders effectively. Ships collided as they tried to maneuver. Their crews panicked by the destruction they had witnessed. The perfect discipline of the Imperial Navy was crumbling like a house of cards. Captain Kim watched the chaos with satisfaction. Kyung-ho, take your Marines to the surface. Find our people and get them out. Marine Commander Kyung-ho Bae saluted sharply. Yes, sir. Company ready for deployment. The Indomitable's hangar bays opened, releasing a dozen assault shuttles toward the planet below. Each shuttle was packed with Marines trained in urban warfare and hostage rescue. But they would not be rescuing helpless victims. By the time the shuttles reached the surface, the human prisoners had taken control of most of the labor camps. 2 years of slavery had taught them everything they needed to know about Vorthak technology. Now they turned that knowledge against their captors. Song led a group of freed prisoners through the main administration building. The Vorthak guards they encountered were completely unprepared for organized resistance. They had spent centuries dealing with broken, starving slaves. They had no idea how to fight disciplined soldiers. "The communication center is on the top floor," Song told his team. "If we can take it, we can coordinate with the rescue shuttles." The humans moved through the building like ghosts. They knew every corridor, every room, every weakness in the structure. The guards who tried to stop them found themselves facing an enemy that understood their tactics better than they did. In the Imperial Palace, Empress Yonseovak watched her empire begin to fall apart. Reports flooded in from across her domain: slave revolts, military uprisings, entire worlds declaring independence. The human broadcast had lit a fire that was spreading faster than her forces could contain it. "Your Majesty," General Morketh said urgently, "we must evacuate you from the planet. The situation is becoming untenable." The Empress stared at the displays showing the human ship. It had not moved from its position above her world, but it no longer needed to. The damage was already done. 3,000 years of imperial rule were collapsing in a matter of hours. "How?" she whispered. "How did they do this?" "They understood something we never did," the general replied. "They knew that our strength was also our weakness. We ruled through fear, but they showed our subjects that we could be defeated. Once that happened, the fear turned to anger. The human shuttles landed near the labor camps to find the prisoners already in control. Kyung-ho Bey and his marines secured the landing zones, while the former slaves organized themselves for evacuation. It was a reunion 2 years in the making. Min-ho Choi found his daughter among the freed prisoners. She was older now, hardened by her experience, but alive. They embraced in the shadow of the burning camps while overhead, the Indomitable waited to take them home. "Did you come all this way just for us?" she asked. Choi looked up at the black ship that dominated the sky and smiled. "We came to show them what happens when someone threatens our family." The evacuation proceeded with military precision. Within hours, all 50,000 humans were aboard the rescue shuttles and heading for the Indomitable. But the damage to the Empire was just beginning. On worlds throughout Vorthak space, the rebellion was spreading. The broadcast had done more than just inspire revolts. It had shown the galaxy that the Empire could be defeated, that their weapons and armies were not invincible. Captain Kim received the final evacuation report and nodded with satisfaction. "All our people are safe. Mission accomplished. What now, Captain?" Bora Lee asked. Kim looked at the planet below, where the fires of revolution were already burning in a dozen cities. "Now we go home. But first, we leave the Empire a message they'll never forget. The Indomitable's weapons powered up one final time, not to destroy but to create." The ship's industrial fabricators began constructing something in space above Nexus Prime, a monument of human metal and technology. Visible from the planet's surface, it was a simple message. Written in letters a kilometer tall, "Remember what happens when you take our children." The black ship turned away from Nexus Prime and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind an empire in flames and a galaxy that would never be the same. The age of Vorthak dominance was over. The age of human influence had begun. The Indomitable emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Vorthak territory, but the galaxy it returned to was not the same one it had left. Across hundreds of worlds, the fires of rebellion burned bright. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were rising up, inspired by humanity's defiant message. Captain Kim stood on his bridge, reading reports from Earth's intelligence network. The human broadcast had done more damage to the Empire than 1,000 warships could have accomplished. Fear had been the Empire's greatest weapon, and now that fear was broken, "Captain," Young Hee Kang reported from her intelligence station, "we're receiving communications from rebel forces on 47 worlds. They're requesting Earth's assistance in their fight for freedom." Kim nodded thoughtfully. This had been the plan all along. Humanity had learned long ago that the best way to defeat a bully was to teach others to stand up for themselves. "Send them our tactical databases," Kim ordered. "Everything we know about Vorthak technology, their weaknesses, their strategies. Let them fight their own battles, but give them the tools to win." Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, Empress Yonseovak faced the collapse of everything she had ever known. The human monument hung in space above her capital like a sword, its message visible to every citizen on the planet. Her own people were beginning to question the empire they had served for 3,000 years. General Morketh entered the throne room with news that grew worse by the hour. "Your Majesty, We've lost contact with the Outer Rim territories. The 7th Fleet has defected to join the rebels. Admiral Zonkar is leading a resistance movement in the core worlds. The Empress slumped in her golden throne, her perfect features twisted with rage and despair. How can this be happening? We are the Vorthak Empire. We have ruled for 3 millennia. The humans changed everything, the general replied quietly. They showed the galaxy that we could be defeated. More than that, they showed them how to defeat us. In the depths of the Imperial Palace, a figure moved through the shadows with deadly purpose. Kyung-ho Bei had not left Nexus Prime with the rest of the rescue mission. He had volunteered to stay behind, to complete a different kind of mission. The Marine commander made his way through corridors he had memorized from captured intelligence reports. His target was not military victory or territorial conquest. It was something far more important: justice for 3,000 years of atrocities. Bei reached the Imperial Command Center where the Empress and her advisors were trying desperately to coordinate their response to the rebellions. The chamber was guarded by the Empire's elite soldiers, warriors who had never known defeat. They learned what defeat felt like very quickly. Bei moved through the guards like death itself, his combat armor absorbing their energy weapons while his own returned precise, lethal fire. Human military technology was centuries ahead of anything the Empire possessed. The guards fell without even understanding what had killed them. The massive doors to the command center exploded inward. Empress Yun Seovak looked up to see a figure in black armor walking through the smoke and debris. For the first time in her life, she felt truly afraid. "I am Commander Kyung-ho Bei of Earth's Marine Corps," the human said, his voice amplified by his armor's speakers. "By the authority of the Terran Defense Force, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity and genocide." The Empress laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think you can arrest me? I am the ruler of 800 worlds. 732 worlds according to our latest count," Bei corrected. "And falling rapidly. Your empire is finished, Empress. The only question now is whether you face justice on Earth or die here on your throne." General Morketh drew his sidearm but found himself facing the barrel of Bei's rifle. "I wouldn't," the human advised. "You've seen what our weapons do to your ships. Imagine what they'll do to you." The general slowly lowered his weapon. He had seen the footage of the space battle, watched his ships disappear under human fire. There was no point in throwing his life away for a lost cause. "What do you want?" the Empress demanded. "Justice," Bei replied simply. "You will come with me to Earth where you will stand trial for your crimes. You will face the families of everyone you've killed, the survivors of every world you've destroyed." "And if I refuse?" Bei's helmet turned toward the window, where the human monument still hung in space. "Then you'll become another example of what happens to those who harm humanity's children. Your choice." The Empress stared at the human soldier and saw her own death reflected in his visor. This was not a negotiation. It was an ultimatum delivered by a species that had just proven they could destroy anything they chose to destroy. "I will come," she said quietly. As Bei led the former Empress away in restraints, the reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire was collapsing faster than anyone had thought possible. Without their fear-based authority, their military forces were defecting or surrendering in massive numbers. On Earth, humanity watched the news with a mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. They had not wanted this war, but they had finished it. The galaxy would never again see the like of the Vorthak Empire's reign of terror. Captain Kim arrived home to a hero's welcome, but he felt no triumph. War was a necessary evil, not a cause for celebration. He had done what needed to be done to protect humanity's children. That was victory enough. The 50,000 rescued humans began the long process of rebuilding their lives. They had survived slavery and emerged stronger. Their testimony would ensure that the galaxy never forgot what the Empire had done, or what humanity had done to stop it. Minho Choi reunited with his wife on Earth's orbital station, their daughter safe between them. The family that had been torn apart by imperial greed was whole again. It was a scene repeated 50,000 times as the freed prisoners returned to their loved ones. But the changes went far beyond personal reunions. The galaxy itself was transforming. Without the Empire's iron rule, hundreds of species were free to determine their own destiny. Trade routes that had been controlled by imperial decree opened to free commerce. Worlds that had been strip-mined for imperial factories began to heal. The Vorthak themselves faced a choice. Some joined the resistance movements on their own worlds, working to build something better from the ashes of their empire. Others retreated to isolated systems, clinging to the old ways. Most simply tried to adapt to a galaxy where they were no longer the dominant power. Empress Yeon Seovac stood trial on Earth 6 months later. The proceedings were broadcast throughout human space and beyond, a final lesson for anyone who might think to follow the Empire's example. She was found guilty of genocide, slavery, and crimes against sentient life. Her sentence was life imprisonment, to be served on a prison world where she could contemplate the lives she had destroyed. It was justice, but it could never truly balance the scales for 3,000 years of suffering. The Indomitable was decommissioned after the war, its mission complete. The massive ship was converted into a memorial, orbiting Earth as a reminder of what humanity could accomplish when their children were threatened. School groups toured its corridors, learning about the price of freedom and the cost of tyranny. Captain Kim retired to a small farm on Earth's surface, tending to crops that grew in soil enriched by rain that fell from free skies. Sometimes he would look up at the stars and remember the black ship that had carried justice to the heart of an empire. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity was not the largest species or the oldest or the most numerous, but they were the most dangerous when provoked, because they understood something that peaceful civilizations had forgotten. Sometimes, the only way to protect the innocent is to fight the guilty. Years passed, and the story of the Indomitable became legend. Children on 100 worlds heard the tale of the black ship that had appeared above the Empire's capital, bringing with it the end of an age. They learned that evil could seem invincible, but that it always contained the seeds of its own destruction. The Vorthak Empire had ruled through fear for 3,000 years. It had taken humanity exactly 6 hours to destroy that fear forever. In its place, they had left something infinitely more powerful: hope. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had intended.